Welcome to Speaking Cinema, serious movie Jibber Jabber, a movie podcast coming to you live from Hollywood, California, where as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. Follow us on social media at Speaking Cinema. Listen to us Jibber Jabber every single Monday. Speaking Cinema. I am your host, untouchable maid podcaster, Mr. Jibber Jabber. Here with me today, as always, with his fucking shine box, Kevin.
That's me in my fucking shine box.
This week on the Jibber Jabber, we continue our director buffet looking at the films of Martin Scorsese. Episode 2.
Got off on a rocky start, perhaps?
Oh, after we wrapped up Raging Bull last week, we're switching DeNiros to another stated masterpiece. Stated masterpiece. 3 decades in life of the Mafia, 1990s Goodfellas.
Good fella.
3 decades in the life of the Mafia, 1990s Goodfellas. Goodfellas.
Looking forward to it. It's gonna be fun.
Interesting. We'll get there. Starring Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, Lorraine Bracco, and Paul Sorvino. Screenplay by Nicholas
Pileggi.
based on his own book, Wise Guys. Produced by Irvin Winkler and distributed by Warner Brothers. Skipped a word there.
Legendary producer Irwin Winkler.
Is he now?
Oh yeah. He's one of those old Hollywood stalwart.
Oh, is he now?
Yeah. Worked with Scorsese a lot.
Goddamn. If you're a mook, based on the true story of Henry Hill, this film follows 30 years of Henry and his friends working their way through the ranks of the New York Italian Mafia.
Not to be confused with the Jewish Mafia or the Irish Mafia.
Are those the 3 mafias?
I mean, there's others. Every little subculture's got their mafia.
Would you consider the Mexican cartels a mafia?
Of course, it's organized crime. That's just what the word means, mafia. Any organized criminal organization that just makes money is a mob.
Yakuza? Mafia.
Mafia.
Triad?
Mafia.
Alright.
FIFA? Mafia.
Ooh! We should do that FIFA movie for this podcast.
Oh god, the Sepp Blatter movie.
Yeah, what's his name?
Tim Roth.
Admitted that he did it for the money.
Of course.
He's like, yeah.
Isn't that why anybody's in FIFA?
Shit. After making Mean Streets and Raging Bull, Scorsese didn't have much interest in making another movie about the Mafia. But when he read Nick
Pileggi.
Wise Guys, he called the author directly and said, I've been waiting for this book my entire life. Pileggi replied, I've been waiting for this phone call my entire life. What?
Yeah, game recognizing game right there.
Kev, you said it perfectly. Scorsese collaborated on the script. Financing was secured once Robert De Niro said that he would do it. Ray Liotta was cast as Henry Hill at the behest of the studio, who wanted a bigger star. Liotta said they probably wanted Eddie Murphy instead of me. Funny. You're funny. You're very funny, Ray. Ray, you're very funny. Production began in New York, Queens, and Long Island. Scorsese allowed the cast to heavily improvise in rehearsals. The best lines were written into the script, which I believe is a more common practice than we're led to believe.
For sure.
Like when people say we improv a lot in this movie, it's like that's like so everyone's on the set, we're all going through it, and it's like, well, it'd be better if I said it this way right now because that way, blah blah blah, and then it kind of, you know.
And that's of course the benefit of being on a bigger movie is you can try it different ways.
Right.
On any movie, you literally can't afford the film to do it in different ways.
This led to one of the most famous scenes, Joe Pesci's "Do You Think I'm Funny?" A scene parodied, referenced, known by many people who probably don't know what movie it comes from or who even said it originally. But, you know, it's like, you know, that line I think is like in a Snickers commercial, you know, or like fucking, they sold McDonald's French fries with that line.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was born out of one of those improv sessions. So, because apparently that actually happened to Joe Pesci once. So,
but someone
he called a guy funny, and the guy went on this triad about what do you mean I'm funny, that kind of thing. So,
am I a clown to you?
My clown, that guy. Yeah.
Scorsese also aimed to make this film more structurally loose and less grandiose and classical, so it'd be different than The Godfather, which is the granddaddy of all mafia movies. With a budget of $25 million, Scorsese's most expensive movie at the time.
Although he has very much done bigger budget movies since then.
I would say, like, Shutter Island is probably
Gangs of New York, big time. His movie we talked about, his new movie, The Irishman, is going to be $125 million.
Fucking $125 million. Is fucking Iron Man going to be in that shit?
We'll see. There better be some Spider-Man. Irish Spider-Man. Hey, shoot me webs.
The film went on to be a cinema classic, endlessly parodied and revered. Roger Ebert called it the best mob movie ever. David Chase cites it as the Koran when talking about making The Sopranos. Won 1 Oscar, Joe Pesci, supporting actor. According to all of the Scorsese, I'm looking at Kev right now, all the Scorsese lovers.
Me?
It should have won over Dances with Wolves.
Dances with Wolves ain't shit.
I think that's a misinterpretation of what the Oscars is doing.
Sure.
In that people expect it to be like a predictor of what's going to be a classic movie, which no one can predict.
It's just picking the best thing of the year and whoever schmoozed the most and put the most billboards up on Sunset.
And this is the time when that Oscar pool was a bunch of white old dudes.
Oh yeah,
specifically white, specifically old, and specifically dudes, especially dudes. So so it's actually kind of surprising that they didn't pick this movie over Dancing with Wolves, but whatever. That's what they like.
Yep, it is.
As of this recording, this film's available in all physical media and digital HD purchases and rental, not streaming, but does pop up on Netflix and other places. This movie may be on Spike TV right now, and if you're in the future, it may be on the Paramount Network right now.
Yeah,
you hear that?
No, I didn't hear that.
Spike TV going away, turning into the Paramount Network.
Wow, I had no idea. Maybe we'll get some better content.
So
I feel like every time I turn on Spike TV, it was just Bar Rescue these days.
Bar Rescue, and don't forget Ink Master.
And Ink Master, yeah.
Which is the scariest game show ever.
El Rey kind of went in and stole the whole audience from Spike, I believe. The young male audience.
Well, that's the thing, is that Spike skews so male. So if you're all keeping track at home, it was the Nashville Network, then the National Network, then Spike TV, and now the Paramount Network. It's going to try to be more general entertainment.
Shit, I'm interested in that.
It's interesting. I feel like a lot of cable channels tried to be very specific, and it's like it doesn't really add up to a lot. People kind of want an identity. Like FX has the identity being like the movie. If you like just really great storytelling movies and then their original shows. So you're not going to see. I mean, you saw UFC was on FX for a minute, but only for a minute. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So weird stuff. Kev. Have you heard of this movie? It's called Goodfellas.
Indeed, I have. Saw it in my formative movie-going years. Saw a lot of Scorsese in those years. And, I think my first exposure to it was Animaniacs, because they have the characters, the Goodfeathers. And I was like, oh, that's great. And they're the Goodfellas. And, one's Robert De Niro, one's Joe Pesci, one's Ray Liotta. And I think that was kind of my first idea of like, oh, Animaniacs is referencing something outside of its world, and then that's kind of when I was interested in it. So,
I don't know if I've seen this movie or if I've seen Casino. I don't know.
They were made kind of right
around each other.
They're similar style, too.
Right. So I think I've seen Casino. I think I've not seen this movie. I've definitely caught some of it on cable. Who is to say? Those VH1 countdown shows that counted down, like I love the 90s or whatever, definitely dedicated a lot of time to Goodfellas. I'm familiar with the scene where the guy's cutting up the garlic with the razor blade. And he claims it melts in the thing. I don't know. Do you think it would melt if you cut it that thin?
Cut it that, I don't know. Melt, probably the technical term isn't that it melt, but it probably would liquefy in some way. Just very much wouldn't keep that like garlic structure. It would just kind of be like putting garlic oil in something,
Very interesting. Very interesting. Do you like Mafia movies?
For the most part, yes, but I think they can really get stuck in the cliches very quickly. And just as a perfunctory thing of like, well, it's a Mafia movie, so we have to have this scene and this scene and this scene. It's like, if you do it with a purpose, sure, but a lot of time it's just like, oh, this is what you do in a Mafia movie. This is what you do in this scene, that kind of thing.
Right. There's a iconography to the Mafia. Sure. The hit, the whack, the fucking, the guy cooking, stromboli, people proclaiming their Italian heritage being very important.
And,
you know,
and just when it was going good, it all fell apart.
Right.
And it all falling apart.
often cited as one of the purely American-made genres, like the westerns and film noir. I will say I like mafia movies, but then if I actually really stew on what mafia movies am I talking about, I don't know what I'm talking about. I like the idea of liking mafia movies.
I mean, I will say in general, I love crime movies because they're great stories. It's a world that I just am not a part of, but it's happening right outside my door, you know.
But it's weird because we live in LA and presumably there is multiple mafias operating within this city.
Yep.
But, you know, and I think about that sometimes when you're watching like an SVU or some show, it's like, well, what if I rear-ended a mafia guy? You know what I mean? But it's like, I don't know. I think these movies make it seem like the mafia is this huge thing. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it is or it isn't. You know what I mean?
There's a really great movie, and I think it's probably, I bet if you talk to people, it's probably the most realistic one. It's a film from Italy. It's called Gomorrah. I believe it takes place in Naples, but I'm not sure. But it really shows a completely unglamorous look at life of crime and just how shitty it is. And the reason why people do it, it's because it's all they know how to do. It's all they've ever been conditioned to do.
So that's an interesting point because while I cannot think of many, I can't just list a litany of mafia movies off the top of my head. That is the one thing that is, it's always a glamorous, unglamorous life, right? It's like glamorized, violent, crazy world, right? It's these people do this thing and it's bad, but it's pretty cool, right?
They're having a good time. Man, Gomorrah really shows it's just a shitty life. I can't remember the director's name, but it is an Italian movie. It came out, I want to say 5-6 years ago, but it's really worth checking out.
We should
with a dark ending. Just the bleakest ending you'll ever see.
No spoilers, please. Speaking of gangster movies, Scorsese is often thought of a maker of many a gangster picture, but in reality only has made 6 that directly deal with organized crime. But why do we think the moniker has stuck with him? And I can answer that question that I'm asking myself. It's because that's what people remember. They remember Casino and Goodfellas and fucking all of his, mafia related. That's what they think of. That's just what they tie themselves to. When you say Scorsese, some people think Aviator, no one thinks
Kundun,
and no one thinks Shutter Island, and everyone thinks this shit.
Goodfellas, Casino. And, he has at least a legitimate claim to be making these movies because he said he knew a lot of these guys. They were in his neighborhood. He knew, the wise guys that Nicholas Pileggi was talking about. So, as a kid, he grew up and he'd see the wise guys, they're having their meeting at, whatever hall. They're having their poker game. Yeah, just all these well-suited, flashy car driving Italian guys just out on the town. So he was right there as it was going on.
So Kev, you've seen this movie before. What are your expectations going into it now?
Want to see, does it still give me that, good shot of feeling that I always get every time I watch it? It's just, Antoine Fuqua, the director who did Training Day, he said he watched this movie before he makes any movie. He says just that shot in the arm of just creativity, inspiration, entertainment. It's this is the goal of what you want your movie to be. And a lot of young filmmakers cite it as this is the one I go to each time for inspiration. So yeah, let's see if it still holds up after all these years. I haven't seen it in some time. So let's find out.
After the divisiveness of last week, I just want this movie to be good. I'm not asking for much.
And I think
more than one note. I want 2 notes, possibly 3 notes.
This movie is definitely not as oppressive as Raging Bull. And maybe this is the one we should.
So you admit that you're wrong.
No. Damn you, I say. Damn you. All right, let's do it.
Here we go. Kev, we're back.
We're back.
I watched I believe it was a Blu-ray copy that I got from the library, Sport Local Library.
Very good. Sport the library. I watched my Blu-ray copy at home last night on a Friday night. Had some pizza to go with it. Really get myself in the mood.
Scorsese and pizza, that's like your jam.
That's just there is no better day.
Would you give me your overall thoughts? You said before we took the break that you want it to hit you the way it does. Did it hit you the way it does?
It still does. It's just a breezy, entertaining, fun movie with some stakes, with some adult, expectations and storytelling in it. But it is just that, like, it's not the big shot of whiskey that Raging Bull is. It is just a really great piece of pizza.
So you're saying it's sustenance, not poison.
Spin it any way you want. But
and I will, and I have.
This movie, this is your sit down on a Friday night and just watch. This movie works both on kind of a high storytelling level, but also it's just an entertaining movie. You, sir, what did you think of it?
Speaking of this movie, this is a good movie.
Yeah.
And I liked it. And
you make me feel good.
It's very well done. There's a lot of interesting duality to this movie. And there's a lot... The movie is not shy about...
Now, let me ask you this real quick. Have you seen this before? Or is this officially your first time?
Officially the first time. I did bring it up in the first half. This is my first time seeing this.
So you probably were watching Casino and thought it was Goodfellas or something like that? Vice versa, or...
I think I saw Casino, but probably caught like half of it, so you didn't get the title.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Okay, but so you can officially say this is your first time seeing Goodfellas.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. There's a lot of duality in this movie, and I think there's no shortage of information, both directly stated to the audience and implied and observed. Right? There's a lot going on.
Sure.
And so it's interesting because I don't know if this movie has there's a lot to unpack, and it's a movie that you could probably watch 5 times and see new things every time, and eventually figure something out. Like Fight Club. If you watch Fight Club enough, the movie starts talking to you in ways it doesn't if you just watch it once. Unlike Raging Bull, this movie has many notes, themes, humor, has them both. Crime, family. Oh my god, it's really, I don't know. I guess I'll just start by talking about what pops out to you immediately, right? Which is the style, right? And again, with Scorsese, we got the freeze frames, we got the photos, we got songs, we got voiceover, we got switching voiceover,
sweeping camera moves,
cutting, long takes. He's really using the format to his benefit.
Again, he never limits himself to one trick. He's the whole box of cinema is at his fingertips, and he's playing in the box.
I will say that while all of this is done very well, and I really like it, and especially when the VO switches to her perspective,
yes.
I was very impressed with that. I do think on that specific thing, they stop. It's really interesting, but then they kind of stop having anything for her to say, so they don't give her any more voiceover after a point. And not in a logical sense. I think it's kind of like a failing of the movie, like, yeah, I don't know what else she would say, so we're just going to have her not talk anymore.
All right.
But there's a great energy in this movie. It's very watchable. And,
That's the key word I would say in this movie is energy. It's always just very, like, you're just kind of moving. You're riding along with it. It's like the best Disney ride, except there's garlic and killing people.
And there's no wait. And, I do think that, like, there's a movement, the packing. I mean, the movie takes place over a very long period of time.
30 years.
They're not afraid to organize that in any way, right? It's like, okay, he spent 4 years in prison. Nothing important happened then. We'll just go, but now we're out. You know what I mean? So it's like the movie takes a grandiose part of time and really shows you the important stuff. And sometimes it's really tiny scenes, and sometimes it's big things. You know what I mean? Like him getting into the drug trade, big deal. Or, him just, hanging out with his little kid, you have so it's an interesting thing of like, well, when you think about it, it's like, what would you put into this and what would you take out? And nothing is off the table in terms of what they're exploring. So it's a really good movie, and the movie is worth it if for nothing else. They killed the maid guy, and then they go to Joe Pesci's house and they're like, don't wake up my ma, and she's like, Joey, is that... He's not named Joey, but Joey, is that you? And they're talking. He's trying to pass him off to the friends, and they're trying to get the shit that they need to go bury this dude. And then she's like, let me eat. It's like, Ma, it's midnight. I'm not going to eat with you now. Hard cut, they're eating, and it's a ton of food.
So that's Martin Scorsese's actual mom.
No.
Yes, it is. My grandmother is Italian, and that is so note perfect of like, if you show up at grandma's house, you're gonna eat. It does not matter if it's Tuesday at 2:00, if it's Saturday at 1 a.m. It's like Grandma's gonna take you in and she's gonna make you some food.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a universal thing. Like, my grandmother she'd always offer people food, and they'd be like, yes or no, right? I was always yes. But if you didn't want it, she'd say half cuff, which meant, a small portion, half a cup.
Yep.
Are you measuring food in cups? When you give a kid hot dogs and chopped up into macaroni and cheese, is that measured in any conceivable way? No. Yeah. But that was her little like, come on, give this to me.
Give it to me.
So, a pretty universal moment and hilarious.
Yeah, that's throughout this movie. It feels very realistic in the most charming way. This is what it's like to just be in a big Italian family. Mm-hmm. All the girls named Marie, and there's Petey, there's Paul, there's little Petey, we're all eating, grandma's spaghetti, and, Ray's making the meatballs, and Robert, he's...
on the sauce all day.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing, too, that they put in this. They put... that scene in particular, where he is strung out on coke and trying to sell some guns and doing stuff all day, where it's like, it's about in terms of the machinations, like, it's about making the sauce all day, but then it's like they weaving in all of the plot of the movie into that, right? So he's like, I call back to the house, make sure you keep the sauce moving. And he's like, yeah, I know, you know what I mean? It's just really interesting the way that's all handled.
And it's done in a way he is in a just coke-riddled paranoia at that point. And the movie's kind of cut that way, but yeah, it's interesting that that's sort of the backbone of the scene. Is the main thing he has to worry about is that sauce getting done. He's got to run the guns, he's got to run the coke, but that sauce better be good by the time Sunday dinner rolls around.
Right. So there's an interesting thing. I mean, with the ending, I don't want to jump to the ending, but the ending is interesting because there's a lot that's said directly and indirectly, right? Where she like he's part of this huge family, and then once he goes to witness protection, he's never going to see any of them again.
Nope.
Right? And they don't out and out say that. Like they say, she says that about her parents, but he's not saying that about his family. So it's just really interesting how it's like this bizarre mix of just all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and it shows while their life was built on ill-gotten gains, that was their life, and they enjoyed it. And then he's stripped of all that, and he's protected, quote-unquote. But yeah, he lives in this kind of boring house. He said, I wanted spaghetti. They gave me noodles and ketchup. It was, there's that certain aspect that's always going to be gone because he ratted his friends out.
I will say, and not that I want to keep talking about Raging Bull, but this is an unlikable person doing unlikable things likably as opposed to unlikably, and every variation therein. Sometimes he is not a likable person doing likable things unlikably, like he makes the sauce.
Yeah.
And sometimes all the other versions of that. So it's an interesting thing, right? Like, this character is a fucking asshole. He says, straight up to the camera, everyone who basically lives an honest American life is an asshole and a sucker, right? I don't want to work a job I hate to barely get by. I want to just do anything that I want to do and fuck everyone else, right? That is not a likable thing to do. The people who you hear say things like that in real life you don't like, right? Those people are bad. That's how you define a bad person. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, listen, we're Americans. We love the idea of someone playing outside the system, using the system to get what they want, but not at such an expense of people's, safety and breaking the rules in that way. You know what I mean?
And I think this movie shows that really well, and there's other Scorsese movies that don't show it very well, where it does show the toll of what he's actually doing while he's living this lavish life, the people he's actually hurting along the way.
Well, that's the thing, is the movie is both glamorous and unglamorous at the same time, and I think it's more heavily glamorous in the beginning than it is in the end, which probably reflects how the character views himself at the beginning versus the end. But yeah, in the beginning, they're fucking up people and it's played for yucks, and in the end, they're fucking up people and it's like, you guys are, losing it. So there's some subtle stuff in here, and I really like it, right? Where the scene where Ray says the only people who get caught are the people who let themselves get caught, right? Which is total fucking bullshit. And when he first says it, you're kind of like, huh, interesting. And then you think about it, and the scene keeps going on, and you're like, why is this scene going on? And it's like, oh, because we're not on his side here. We believe his wife, who doesn't believe that, right, at the time. Later, she believes it falsely. But, he keeps saying, it's going to be fine. Like, it's like, whoever's in jail is in jail because he wants to get away from his wife. And it's like, oh, wait, no, that's not true. And it's like, he says it in a charming way, and then the scene keeps going and puts you down the fucking rabbit hole of like, no, that's all garbage. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I also love the scene where when he's dating his future wife,
His future wife.
There's a neighbor who like assaults her, and so he shows up with a gun and just pistol whips the shit out of that guy. Yep. And on a technical level, one thing that is in both Raging Bull and this movie is that when the violence hits, it hits super hard, but they don't milk it. It doesn't overstay its welcome, right? You shoot someone, you fucking shoot them, they're dead. I feel like another director would like linger on the gun and linger on the moment and try to think that they're like fucking Hitchcock, building up suspense all of a sudden, right? In the moment. It's like, no. He's gonna pistol whip the guy. He knows he's gonna do it. It's already happening. And the fact that guy doesn't see it happening is only more evidence of it that is gonna happen. So he just starts hitting him and hitting him and hitting him and hitting him, and he points the gun at the friend, and the friend's like, fuck!
Yeah. And then he hands it to Karen.
And she says,
I gotta admit, it turned me on.
And that explains everything that you gotta know about her character, right? Where she is a normal girl in every conceivable way. She wants a family, she wants a husband, she wants a house, she wants a life, she wants that American dream, she wants her Italian family, Jewish family, she wants it all. But the danger of this situation attracts her to the situation. Mm-hmm. And that is all you really need to know about her and everything else we've learned already.
And I think that's a key scene talking about these guys are doing unlikable things, but they are likable people. They're pretty charming.
Right.
And they can tell a joke, they know how to have a good time, and you can see how people get swept up in that mafia world, Right. You want to be best friends with these guys. You don't necessarily want to kill people or do things illegally, but these guys seem like they'd be a good time to hang out.
Well, that's what she says, right? Like, everyone knew him, everyone wanted to be nice to him, and being around that, she says that literal thing, and it's like you kind of needed someone because these people are murderers and fucking arsonists and bad people, so you need someone to tell you the perspective of how you could tolerate this kind of behavior.
And we get it in that great one-take shot of going through the Copa, where they get, they go through the kitchen, and it's like, hey, Henry, and, he's like, John with the guys like he's known him for 10 years, and, we're seeing it from her perspective, and this is like her second date with the guy.
Right.
And
they fly in a table, right? It's not even like, it's not a reserved table. They'll go get a fucking table out of the back.
Yep.
And bring it to you.
For you. You got front row seats for Henny Youngman. Also, apparently they did that shot, and it went perfect, and then they swooped over to Henny Youngman, and he forgot his line, so they had to redo it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's also interesting because, they're buttering everyone up with money. You know
exactly,
what I mean?
And that's, the great lubricant is money. So.
And it's interesting. I mean, not that this is an objective view of the mafia by any means, but it is interesting because I think Americans look at gangsters, and at the top, it's probably like this, as like they're just getting up on everyone all the time. But it is what you're saying, where it's like these guys steal a lot of money, but also spend it as fast as they get it, right? And they're trying to facilitate that life. It's like that, live fast, die fast kind of thing. You know what I mean? And that's the interesting thing that the movie does show over and over again, where they do the big job and he goes out and buys a Cadillac, and he goes out and buys a 20 grand mink. You know what I mean? And I think it's one of those exposition moments where he's like, you buy a 20 grand mink. It's like, yeah, I don't know how much a fucking mink coat costs, so you do need to tell me that thing costs 20 grand. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They redo your living room in this gaudy Japanese style.
Oh, God.
Oh, boy. That was no living room.
So, I think we both would agree that these characters are charming and interesting and glamorous to an extent, right? Mm-hmm. Also, the helicopter scene is so good. Because it is played like, what is happening? You know what I mean? And you're like, so the cops are following them with a helicopter? Interesting. And then just how that all plays out. So good. But it's interesting how we romanticize the mafia, the Italian mafia specifically, you know what I mean? Mostly in movies, but also books, TVs, and video games. It's really weird because it's a crime syndicate made from immigrants that bring their organized crime of violence, terror, and corruption from another country to America, right? It's a history of an oppressed people. And it's just interesting because, the mafia, Italians and Jewish people and Irish people, right, are conceivable mafias. You know, some of the mini mafias that we've established are all people who were oppressed in America, and only after World War II were they all folded into the greater scheme of what we consider to be whiteness, right?
Sure.
Because pre-World War II, they were not white. They were dirty fucking, you know, there's like a Bruce Lee movie where it's like there's like a sign, no dogs, no Chinese, no Irish.
Yep.
And he's like, fuck you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, they were just lower than dog shit.
So it's interesting that these people, by these people I mean the mafia, break rules and the laws. Rules cut the front of the line, you know, kind of shittiness. Laws facilitating crime, kidnap, murder. On a lesser extent, you're double parking in front of a fucking hydrant. But
then you pay off the cops with packs of smokes. You get
and with money,
on your side.
right? It wasn't just smoke. They put money in those packs of smokes.
Exactly. And again, you're charming them. You're charming the cops, and they go like, okay, you know, hey, don't do it in broad daylight. All right, guys.
So then, the massive police corruption, the union corruption, right there, they pay to get away with crimes. Now the crimes are not just law breaking; they're reshaping the institutions that are supposed to be the bedrock of fucking civilization, right? So it's just weird that our main character is doing drugs, selling drugs, cheating on his wife, assaulting innocent people. The mailman did his job delivering mail, and they rough him up. It's like, why do they gotta rough him up? You know what I mean? He didn't do shit. Mm-hmm. But they rough him up. They kill that kid because he's mad that he got shot in the foot.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Spider. Yep.
So it's just a weird thing. It's just a weird thing. Like, why is this so glamorous why is this so glamorous? As opposed to our other concepts of gangsters, you know what I mean, which are not glamorous. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like Yakuza sitting in steamy bunkers playing illegal gambling, and
that's not glamorous.
That's not glamorous. You
know,
but these guys made it.
Yeah, the cartel, which has ties to American street gangs, that's not glamorous.
No.
So it's like it's a weird race thing on some level, right? Where it's like the white mafias are cool and the other mafias are not. But then on some level, it's like the white mafia are doing the crimes that you like. They're selling you the drugs that you like. They're giving you the gambling, the prostitution that you like. They're fixing the sport that you like. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
It's all about your pleasure. It's almost customer service at that point. You know, they're giving you what you want. Everybody says how cool Vegas was when the mob ran it.
Right.
The ultimate pleasure town of just like give people what they want for the right price.
Right. You know? But if a black guy is selling weed, that's the fucking downfall of. I do think there's a racial element to this, right? Because if a black guy sells you weed, that is, and not in California anymore, but that is, you know, like my school was like, you can't wear baggy clothes because of gangs. It's like, we live in literally a city that was literally the safest city in America a couple of times in a row, right? There are not gangs here. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you're so paranoid about this thing that you're restructuring your life, even though it's not present in your life, and you have no thought about this other thing. Because I don't know why. So it's a weird. I'm not saying Scorsese is in on this. I'm not saying anything about that. I'm just saying it's interesting that I do think that part of this movie is very glamorous. I think another part of it is not glamorous. I think it oscillates.
The entire second half is showing just their entire downfall.
Right.
Coke-fueled paranoia and just not trusting people that you cared about.
And the violence is funny in the first half and not funny in the second half, right? When they kill Spider?
Yeah.
It's like, that's not cool.
It's a sad scene.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, like, rock song under it to kind of make it like, he's beating the guy up. It's like, you just killed a kid because he stood up for himself. And
right.
That scene's probably the turning point of the movie.
I'd agree. Yeah. So what do you take about this, Kev? My view of various organized crimes and the racial component. Speaking for all white people, how would you feel?
It is.
Which you don't.
I think this one, there's a little bit of the racial element when Samuel L. Jackson's character comes in. Also, early Samuel L. Jackson role.
Also, wearing some weird underwear.
We got some weird underwear.
Also, tucking your shirt into your underwear and sleeping. I'll never understand that.
They kind of, he's like the first fall guy when he fucks up, and they just, no remorse. They just show up at his house and just blast him, and he's dead.
And then they do then roll through the whole crew.
Yeah, they go through, but he's like the first domino to fall. I'm not sure how much of the racial element is getting integrated into this story.
None.
Explicitly.
None.
Because we are just kind of talking about what we know, and Scorsese knows the wise guys in the Mafia, and Nicholas Pileggi knows the wise, how this world operates.
I think this is one of those things where this is more of a reflection about how those dudes looked at the Mafia, right? Which maybe when they were kids, they were glamorous, and when they grew up, they saw them for what they were, which is people who are just on the fringe of just always fucking it up.
I mean, how great is the opening scene where, it's a dead guy, or half dead guy in the trunk, just like stabs him, shoots him, like this very non-glamorous scene, and then as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. Cue the Tony Bennett, cue the title card. Like, that duality is there from the beginning of this movie in one very tight little scene. So it's just great in how it shows why these guys could be who they were, but also we're walking a razor wire, and it's all gonna fall over.
Right. And I don't think the racial thing is from this movie, but it's just interesting that this is a time, this movie came out in the 90s, gangster rap, very popular in the 90s, and gangster rap was criticized for
glamorizing violence.
Right. But that's America, right? We've always loved...
We were a country born from violence.
Born from violence.
Revolution.
And we loved, like, when mobsters took over Chicago during... Prohibition.
They were our folk heroes.
Right. They're the folk heroes, and the fucking cops are the bad guys. So it's like, in the grand tradition... Gangster rappers talking about also their fantasy of pulling AKs on cops, right? That America totally believed.
Yeah.
It's like, but I don't know. So there's a weird.
I mean, we love folk heroes, and that's always what a folk hero does.
Right.
But in the moment, in the time, it might seem like, of course, fuck those guys. But then you learn about what Al Capone was doing during Prohibition, and you go,
yeah, he wasn't a good guy.
Ooh,
yeah.
Geez.
So there's just a weird. I don't know if it's a youth thing. I don't know if it's a race thing. I don't know if it's a class thing. It's probably an all three of them thing, right? Where it's like the '90s folk heroes of NWA are all some bad hombres, but the dudes in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and the 60s who are running the Mafia on the East Coast, like those are. They fucking ruled. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's a weird. This movie just made me think about that. I've been listening to a lot of. I don't know. Those two things. I've been listening to a lot of gangster rap, and I watched this movie, and I'm like, how are these different? You know what I mean?
Well, it's interesting how. Again, what I think the sign of a great movie is as it ages and as the world changes, we can see it from new perspectives.
Indeed.
And that stuff's certainly in there. It's not a focal point, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we're kind of in a different world racially of, a lot more stuff is out in the open, a lot more people can talk about it. We can look at that from a very different point of view. So... yeah, that's something I really didn't think of while watching it. So.
It's just interesting. It's just interesting how America looks at criminals as awesome, and how that changes over time, right? It's like, we rebelled against England, cowboys, slavery, it's essentially human trafficking, which wasn't illegal at the time, was legal and profitable, and the backbone of our economy. It's just it's fucking weird. You know what I mean? We live in a weird country. And also, it's weird that it took me to be 30 years old to fucking really see that, like, wow, we live in a country that is just bizarrely divided. You know what I mean? Like, bizarre.
I mean, again, we only have, 240 some odd years of history to pull from.
Yeah, I'll count the 400 years of colonization. But sure, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. But it's,
200 formal years.
Exactly. Whereas other countries have had... thousands of years.
Right. There's like some port in like the Middle East that's like the city celebrated its 5,000th year of being a city, and you're like, what does that even mean?
You can't even conceive of that.
Yeah. Like, what?
You go to Germany and you stand in front of a church, and that church is 700 years old.
Yeah.
It was one building. Has seen more history than our entire country.
Right. And in America, it's like Eddie is just that this bridge was erected 25 years ago. And it's like, damn. Do you have any nitpicks for this movie?
Not especially. It's pretty. it's pretty well put together, start to finish. I think Scorsese might pull a little of his punches to tell a more populist story, but overall, I think it's a pretty airtight movie.
I'd say the only thing is there's a one mafia guy who's like their boss. You know, he has like the gray hair. And he's kind of fatter.
Paul Sorvino.
Yeah, he goes down in the end, and you know that he has his hand in a bunch of bad shit, but you don't know how. Like there's not blood on his hands in this movie, right? Sure. He's never really there.
When you're at that high, you delegate.
Sure, but you never really see him delegate a hit, or you know what I'm saying? Like he seems to be more of like a bookie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean his phrase is "fuck you, pay me."
That's what it says. In some cool stuff, just the details they go into. Peter and Maria is good.
Yeah.
Ray Liotta's laugh is it's scary. It's amazing.
He has an interesting laugh. A great moment. One thing I noticed in this viewing, first half of the movie is a lot more classic type music, either score or Tony Bennett or stuff like that.
Real, yeah.
Second half, Muddy Waters, the Rolling Stones. Once we're really getting into some really heavy shit, it's a very conscious shift in the soundtrack. So, a great moment while I was watching this movie, the "Do you think I'm funny" scene starts. Christine and one of her friends are over, and they're just talking. They're not distracting me from the movie, but they're just talking because they're gonna go out. And when Joe Pesci starts the whole do you think I'm funny? Do I amuse you? They stopped and kind of turned and looked at it. So the fear in that scene is real.
Oh yeah.
And it was just a really interesting moment to see that happen in real time, of people half paying attention, well, not paying attention to it, but then that moment starts and they start to quiet down and look at it, and then they were quiet until that whole scene was over. So that was just a really interesting moment.
No, I mean that's a scene parody to extremes. But then you watch it and you're like, whoa, yeah, it turned, and then when he's like, come on, man, fucking forget about this, and then they start laughing about it, and then he's like, yeah, you think I'm funny? Oh, don't do that again, and he pulls out his gun, and you're just like, oh my god.
It's that whole scene is so good.
Yeah.
It's fun seeing, as a fan of The Sopranos, how many people from The Sopranos are in this movie. Paulie Walnuts is in one of the early Wise Guys. Spider is Michael Imperioli. He's a star in The Sopranos.
Interesting.
Lorraine Bracco is a star in The Sopranos. She plays Tony's therapist. Her mom in the movie is Tony's wife's mom in the movies, or in The Sopranos. So it's fun to see that connection kind of come through. The guy who plays Big Pussy in The Sopranos is one of the coat guys when he's going through the Copacabana. He's wheeling coats around. It's just all these little ones. It's these people all got to be part of another.
Shared universe?
Oh boy, I hope not. So,
also, is Tony Soprano dead? Yes or no?
Yes.
Correct answer.
Yes.
Is Henry Hill noble in his portrayal of his abysmal crime friends, or is he just a rat?
I think he's just a rat. I think this movie
really
plays at that.
Interesting.
Because yeah,
so he should have taken the B. By B I mean bullet, for when his friend wanted to kill him,
to trade his life for the life he got in witness protection.
Which, by the way, is our lives, and also better than our fucking lives, because he has a house and we live in our apartments.
Oh, fucked up housing market, but he has a house in a shitty place. Doesn't he live in New Jersey somewhere or some shit?
I don't know. No, he lives
Rhode
in
Island.
No, Oregon.
Oh, that's right. He moved to Oregon. Oregon sucks.
Oregon does not suck. Oregon has the most skate parks per capita of any state in the union.
Whoa, bro.
Including Puerto Rico.
Wow.
Which doesn't have the many skate parks. No, I don't think it's neither. He did what was right for himself. Yeah. His friends were not good people. He's not a good person. They all live under these false morals, and they're all religious but cheat on their wives, and they're all religious but fuck people up, and are and the appeal of this life is the intrinsic selfishness of the life, right?
Yep.
So it's his friend wants to kill him. You know what I mean? And it's instead of being killed, you could go to jail because fuck you. You want to kill me? You know what I mean? I get it. I don't think he's a good person for doing it. He didn't do it in the interest of being good. He's utilizing the system to get away with basically, a lifetime of bad actions. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I don't think he's a fucking rat. But I don't think he's also a saint either. He's not a good. He's just he's just doing these things. Do you have a favorite quote from this movie?
I like when he goes. They're at his mom's house and he goes. And he hit the deer and was stuck. It was his paw. His paw. What do you call it? The hoof. The hoof. He like the fact that he calls it a paw. God, that's funny. I don't know why. That moment I always get to.
Yeah, that's good. My favorite quote is, Karen, I needed that. you got rid of it? And it's just like, that scene really betrays how much he's lost it. It's like, you think, and also that Coke that she flushed was literally on the stove. Yep. Like on the little tray above the stove. Yep. So you think that cops are going to go through your kitchen and not test every white powder that's in there, that sugar, that salt, that powdered sugar, that brown fucking sugar, all of it. Your fucking dude, your fucking cream of tartar, that's gone, homie. Yep. Baking soda, evidence.
There's no white powder in that house.
Right. So like, just
not even Tums residue.
Yeah. Yes. You know what I mean? Fucking everything in the, you know what I'm saying? So it's like that scene where he is. That is the scene where you realize that like he's completely lost his control.
They both have. They're both just coked out, crazy people.
Right. But just that quote, Karen, it's just so good. They don't show that big heist. Did that hurt the movie?
No, I don't think, because it's from Henry's perspective and he wasn't part of it.
But he gets cut in on it though, right?
He gets cut in on it and he helped plan it. There's the scene where they got Mike Starr's security guy and he lets him in. They kind of get the plans that they need. But he's not actually in the shit of the heist. And I think it would have had to be a big set piece that, honestly, I think if it came at that point in the movie, would have slowed the momentum down.
I agree with you. It was a little bit weird.
It's not like Heat where it builds up to that heist and we want to see that big showdown between our two lead men. It's in that moment, it would have been a big action set piece that just doesn't jive with the tone or the flow of the movie.
And it's also not like Pulp Fiction where everything is about this heist that we don't see. It's the heist is just another thing to see.
Reservoir Dogs.
Why did I say Pulp Fiction?
Pulp Fiction.
Not Pulp Fiction. It's not like it's a critical thing that happens, but the nuance of it happening is actually not important. It's about the aftermath of what it is. You know what I mean? A New York film critic said that women are not capable of understanding Goodfellas since it's a male-centric film. Your thoughts on that?
That is such bullshit, and that article is terrible.
I've not read this article, but I can
check it out only to just see how wrong.
Who wrote it? Armin White?
It wasn't Armin White.
So. That's a stupid thing to say, and only a stupid person would say it.
Yep.
That's just ridiculous.
I mean, there's a good chunk of the movie. It's from Karen's perspective, and Lorraine Bracco's a fantastic actress. Brings a lot to that character.
And if you live in an Italian family, you'd have a different perspective. Regardless, fuck race or gender. If you lived in an Italian neighborhood with Italian people, with Italian whatever, you'd have a different take on that than the rest of us. And yeah, just fucking come on.
Man, the idea that they can't understand like a scene where somebody, I'm just busting your balls. It's like, you've seen people do that. They're not living in this little like women bubble where they drink tea and talk about.
Yeah, and they explain it enough. It's so stupid. Yeah. It's also like, so stupid.
And I've heard that argument a few times. It's like, this idea that women are somehow not capable of reaching a different level is like treating them like they're subhuman, and that's
indeed
idiotic.
I agree with you completely. And speaking of idiotic, Get Out had 100% Rotten Tomatoes.
Yep,
99.
Who's the one? Was it our boy Armin White?
It's Armin White.
Oh, that motherfucker!
Professional troll Armin White.
That dude is just, oh my god.
Listen, I may not be where I want to be in life, but I take comfort in waking up knowing I'm not Armin White.
Yep.
Ending shot was of Joe Pesci shooting the gun
at the camera.
Why?
So it's an homage to the Great Train Robbery, which has a shot of an outlaw shooting a gun directly at the screen, which people thought they were actually getting shot at and like trying to duck away, back in the day. I think it's an ultimate rebuke because the previous shot is
him getting the paper.
Him getting the paper, and he looks at the camera and he kind of waves like a schmo. And I think it's very much an indictment of like, Henry Hill, you're an asshole. You've ratted out your friends and you deserve to die, probably. Maybe not quite that heavy a term, but I think it's a rebuke on Henry Hill.
Perhaps, but it's just bizarre because, Joe Pesci's character deserves the whacking that he gets.
Sure.
He killed, even if let's just play by the rules of the world, right? Yeah, homeboy ratted out his friend, but this guy killed a made man. You know what I mean? Which arguably is worse. I don't know. And he was out of control. He's been out of control the whole movie. Mm-hmm. Funny guy though.
He is funny.
Why don't you settle down with the girl? I settle down with her every night, and in the morning she leaves. Why would I want? I got you. I don't need anyone else. I love you, Ma.
Actually, my other favorite line is he goes, "This broad, she doesn't want to go out with me because I'm Italian. A Jew broad, prejudice against Italian." He's so offended that he judged her as Italian. He calls her a Jew broad. It's the funniest shit ever.
So good. Do you like this movie, and does it work?
Yes, I do. It is still just as vibrant as ever, as entertaining as ever. Not quite as heavy as some of Scorsese's other work. He's kind of in showman mode here, but he's made a timeless movie. It's great.
It is great, and I agree with you.
I'm glad you liked it. So
thank you.
We started off rough with Raging Bull, but then I kind of realized just how abrasive Raging Bull is.
Raging Bull is quite abrasive, and
this is a really, for a movie about such violent people, pretty breezy movie that you can kind of just sit down and watch.
It is, and I think that could be a detraction from it, but it's ultimately not a detraction from it. I think it's telling a complicated story of perception, of reality, of who this guy is. Like, he liked being a gangster. You know what I mean? He always wanted to be a gangster, and he liked it when he was.
Yep.
And that's interesting.
And it's this one you can kind of just sit down and watch it anytime. Something like The Godfather, as great as it is,
it's not watchable.
It's a very somber movie. It's entertaining, but it's much more of a heavy burden of a story than. Whereas Goodfellas is just like, let's have a little fun. There are consequences, but at the end of the day, it is telling a fun story. So yeah, it's great.
Indeed. That's it for us. This episode written by Kev, music by Jeff Russell. I'm Mr. Jibber Jabber. That's Kev. Keep slicing those garlic cloves with a razor blade. Never rat on your friend. And keep your mouth shut.
And listen to Tony Bennett.